She tests you every day. Whether you realize it or not, that's what's happening. Every eye roll, every sharp question, every time she pushes back against something you said. It's not random, it's not meaningless, it's a test. And if you don't understand why she does it, you're going to fail those tests. Fail enough of them, and she stops seeing you as a man that she can respect. She stops seeing you as someone she can feel safe with. And the respect, the attraction, and eventually the love, that all starts to die. If you're new here, my name is Dr. John DeBach. I've been a couples counselor and relationship coach for over 15 years. I've worked with thousands of men on their marriages and relationships. I've been on national television. I've published books, and I've built a social media following of over 1 million people in just under a year, just by sharing the truth about what works in relationships. And the most important thing I can tell you today is this: the tests your woman gives you are not an accident. They're baked into how relationships work. If you want to keep her respect, if you want to keep her attraction, and if you want to have the marriage or partnership that you really want, you need to stop complaining about the tests and start actually passing them. Now, before we go deeper into why women test men, let me ask for one small favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's free, it helps the channel grow, and it makes sure you don't miss future videos that can actually save your relationship. Now, let's talk about the real reason women test. A lot of men get this wrong. They think women test them because women are manipulative or cruel. That's not true. Women test men because, at the most basic biological and psychological level, they need to know if you're strong enough to lead, if you're safe enough to trust, and if you're consistent enough to rely on. Let's start with the biological side of things. For all of human history, women carried more risk when choosing a mate. Pregnancy is dangerous. Raising children requires enormous resources and protection. That's not theory, that's the reality our ancestors lived with for thousands of years, and even in some third world countries still exist. And because of that, women evolved with instincts that constantly look for signs of weakness, inconsistency, or lack of commitment in men. When she challenges you, when she questions your decisions, when she nitpicks something small, part of that is her wiring kicking in. She's not just giving you a hard time, she's scanning. She's looking to see if you'll stay calm, if you'll stay grounded, or if you'll lose your composure and prove to her that you are not reliable. Think about it like this: a woman's subconscious mind is asking, can I build a life with this man? Can I raise children with him? Even if kids aren't on the table, that wiring doesn't go away. So every little test is a way of shaking the tree to see what falls. Will he crumble if I push? Will he lash out if I challenge him? Or will he hold steady and make me feel safe? I had a client once who kept complaining that his wife would criticize the way that he drove. Very common phenomenon amongst couples. There's stand-up comedy bits about it all across the internet. And he thought it was just nagging. He said, John, she always tells me I'm driving too fast or too close to the car in front of me, and it drives me nuts. But here's what he didn't realize. She wasn't just nitpicking. She was testing his ability to stay calm under critique. If he blew up every time she mentioned it, she got her answer. He couldn't handle pressure. Now, not all of this is conscious. Some of this is done by the women on a subconscious level. I just want to put it out there. So sometimes women hear me say that and they go, no, he drives like crap and I'm worried that he's going to crash. Yes, there's a cognitive conscious part there as well, but the way that you react, the way that women will push you is part of the subconscious wiring. Now, when he finally stopped reacting defensively and just calmly said to her, I love you, I've got it handled, she stopped doing it, or at least stopped exploding. She would ask politely, like, well, would you mind slowing down? He said, yeah, sure. No problem. And there was an actual conversation as opposed to an attack. And why did this happen? Because he passed the test. He showed her he could be steady and not reactive. Now let's move into emotional safety, because this is huge. Women need to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally as well. And that means they want to know that if they're upset, if they're scared, if they're challenging you, you won't collapse or explode. You won't disappear. One of the most common tests women give is picking a fight over something small. Again, not always conscious. She doesn't care about the socks on the floor or the dish left in the sink as if it's the most important thing in the world, but it comes up that way. So, what is she really testing? She's testing, if I push him, will he turn into a little boy and sulk, or will he be a man and handle it with calmness and strength? Now, let me give you one more example here. I worked with a husband who said his wife always brought up past mistakes in arguments. Very common. And he thought it was unfair. He'd say, "Why are you bringing that up again? I thought we moved past it." But here's the truth, she wasn't bringing it up to torture him. She was testing whether he would get defensive or whether he would own it and show her he could be trusted now. And when he stopped fighting the test and just said, "I know I hurt you back then, and I'm here to prove to you every day that I've learned from it," the argument started to soften instantly. The test was passed because he stayed grounded. Now, here's the part that most men totally miss. Testing isn't always conscious. I've mentioned this before already. Sometimes women don't even realize they're doing it. It's not like she sits down and plans, okay, at 4 p.m., I'm going to throw a tantrum, a test about whether he remembers to text me. It happens on a subconscious level. It comes from fear, insecurity, or simply the need for reassurance. And that's why it's so important that you don't get angry at the test. The test itself is not the enemy. Failing the test is the enemy. This brings us to relational calibration. Okay? What do I mean by that? Relationships are not static. They don't flatline. They're like a thermostat. If a man gets lazy, distant, or passive, the woman often starts testing more. Why? Because she's trying to see if he'll step back into his role as a leader and partner. Maybe she'll question how much time he spends on his phone. Maybe she'll challenge him about not planning dates anymore. Those aren't random complaints. They're her way of saying, are you still in this with me or have you checked out? Passing those tests means showing up with intention. Plan a date, take the lead, re engage. When you do that, the tests decrease because she feels secure again. I had a man in my practice who kept saying, "My wife is always nagging me about money. She says I don't take it seriously." And he thought that she was just trying to be controlling. But what she was really doing was testing whether he was engaged in their financial life or whether she had to carry the mental load of the finances herself. When he stepped up, he made a budget, he had a real plan, the nagging stopped. Again, the test was passed because he showed leadership instead of avoidance. Now, let's address for a second here the unconscious patterns, okay? If a woman has been hurt before, if she's been betrayed, or if she grew up in a household where men failed her, maybe an uncle, her father, or even older brothers, those scars don't just disappear. They show up as tests. She might accuse you of things you haven't done. She might question your loyalty, even when you're faithful. Those moments are incredibly frustrating. Believe me, I've been there, I've seen it. They're beyond frustrating, but they're still tests. She's really asking, are you different from the men who hurt me before? And if you get angry and defensive, you fail. If you calmly reassure her, stay consistent, and keep proving who you are through actions, you pass. Now, that doesn't mean you let yourself get abused. There's a line. If the tests become constant accusations or disrespect, that needs to be addressed directly. But in most cases, what feels like unfair suspicion is actually fear. And your job as a man is to be strong enough not to be triggered by her fear. You ground her by staying calm, by being consistent, and by showing through time that you are who you say you are. So, what are the core questions behind all of these tests? Comes down to three simple things. Can I trust you? Are you strong enough to handle me in life? And do you really care or are you just coasting? That's it. Every test boils down to one of those three. If you can answer those three with your behavior, not just your words, but your tone, right, then you'll pass almost every test she throws your way. It really is that simple. Passing tests isn't about being perfect, it's about being steady. It's about not letting your emotions get hijacked every time she challenges you. It's about remembering that she's not your enemy. The test is not the problem. The test is an opportunity to show her that you are the man that she can respect, trust, and rely on. Let me tie this all together with one last story. Another client of mine had a wife who always would just get upset before family events, big gatherings, things like that. She'd pick a fight about something stupid, like the shirt he was wearing or how late they were. He used to fight back, and the whole day would be ruined. But when he understood that it was a test, everything changed. He realized her real fear was that he wouldn't have her back in front of her family, that he'd embarrass her or let her down. So the next time she snapped at him, instead of fighting, he smiled, he kissed her forehead, and he said, "I've got you. Don't worry." And guess what happened? She melted. She just completely was like relief, right? The fight evaporated. Why? Because he passed the test. He showed strength, calm, and care in the moment that she needed it. So the next time your woman tests you, stop seeing it as an attack. Start seeing it as a chance to prove who you are. Every test is an invitation to rise. Every single test is an opportunity to deepen her respect and trust. If you can shift your perspective like that, you'll not only stop resenting the test, you might even start welcoming them because each one is a chance to strengthen the foundation of your relationship. If you found value in this, remember to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss more. It costs you nothing, but it helps me reach more men who need this message. And I don't like selling here, but if you do want to go deeper, I have a very private and exclusive men's group where we work one-on-one on the exact issues you're facing. If you're interested, the information is in the description below. Thanks so much.